I'm your host, Miss Amber J, and this is the Dear World Podcast, the place that if you drink your water and mind your business, you'll be just fine. We're all family here, so nothing is off limits. The goal of this podcast is to be relatable, transparent, and honest. Please turn on your notifications so that you will be alerted whenever a new episode has been posted. Don't forget to rate the podcast in your app store and share it with your family and friends. I hope that you enjoy your listening experience, and welcome to the family. What's going on, y'all? Happy Wednesday. Pull up a chair and get comfortable. Welcome to another episode of the Dear World Podcast. This is season 5, episode 2. If you haven't already done so, please head over to your app store and rate this podcast. Also, if you are looking for something interesting to read and you haven't checked out my book Scorned, I will put the purchase link in the description box of this episode. Just a few things before we dive into today's topic. Quarantine seems like it's coming to an end. The stay-at-home orders are being lifted. So what does that mean for you? I feel like whatever our definition of normal was, it's no longer in existence. The world is giving birth to or has given birth to a new idea of normalcy. So what does that mean for you? I think we have to decide what that means for us as individuals and how we're going to integrate ourselves into that. I also feel like we should have learned something during quarantine. I can't tell you what you should have learned, but over the last 2 to 3 months, I think you should have learned something. I think there should be a takeaway. Personally, I feel like my patience has been tested. I've been tested spiritually, mentally, and emotionally. I've been forced to kind of come out of this box that I put myself in. I've been forced to come out of my comfort zone. I'm learning how to just be me and focus on me. I definitely have worked on my patience. I have worked on my communication skills, and not just my communication skills on a personal level, but also on a professional level. I've learned several things during quarantine. There were several things that I wanted to learn, but I realized my attention span is horrible and I need to work on how I delegate my time. That's something that I also realized during quarantine. I'm a very organized person, but sometimes I don't delegate my time well and utilize my day to the best of my abilities. So these are things that I want to continue to work on even though quarantine is over. I'm personally still under a stay-at-home order because I'm not with the shits and I just really want to focus and put myself on a better path than what I'm on right now. So for me, I'm not diving back into society. I'm not going out and turning up and all that other stuff, even though I don't think I was like that before quarantine, but I'm definitely not going to be like that after quarantine. So again, what is your takeaway from this pandemic? What have you learned? What has changed? What is the same? I'm interested in hearing from you guys, whether it's on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. I want to know, or if you don't want to share, just think about it amongst yourself. Without further ado, let's jump into today's topic. Can we talk about how it seems like the hoes are winning, how social media has a greater influence on people than what they realize, cultural ideas of success, and then also clout chasing? But y'all, not necessarily in that order. Throughout the episode, I'm going to ask you guys a couple of questions. The first question being, what are some ideas of cultural success within your household or within your culture? I think within the Black culture, if you don't drive a specific car that costs a specific amount of money, if you don't wear certain name brand clothing, and if you don't have a certain size home, people automatically deem you as unsuccessful. I know a lot of people will say, y'all are broke if you don't own a house. Y'all are broke if your car is not, a model within the last 5 years. Y'all are broke if you don't own a pair of buffs. Y'all are broke if you don't have X, Y, and Z. When realistically, you cannot measure a person's success by the material values that they have. You cannot measure a person's success by the things that you see in general, because there are a lot of people who carry themselves modestly that are out here getting money, like big boy money. But then there are some people that are flashy, that look like $1 million, that only have 2 pennies in their pocket and a can of expired orange juice in their refrigerator. So I think within Black culture, we tend to judge people and base their success on the things that we see or the things that we assume they have. And if they don't have those things, we automatically deem them as being unsuccessful. When realistically, the ideal of success has to be defined by the individual and not necessarily by a culture. Because to me, success has nothing to do with money. Success has nothing to do with monetary things, but for a lot of people, they equate success with money, with material, objects, with things. Hey you, are you looking to make a podcast but don't know how to get started? Anchor is the easiest way. First and foremost, my favorite part is free 99. That's right, it's free. There are creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or PC so that it sounds great. Anchor will even distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app today or go to anchor.fm to get started. Realistically, though, some of y'all need to get some business and understand the fact that everybody doesn't want to be a homeowner. Everybody doesn't want $100,000 car. Everybody doesn't care about the latest and greatest fashion labels and designer things. That brings me to my next question. Why are you doing what you are doing? Are you doing it for an applause? Are you doing it to keep an audience? Are you doing it for validation? Are you doing it to be seen? A lot of people do things just because everyone else is doing it. But guess what? Just because you're used to doing something or because everyone is doing it, that doesn't make it normal. And here's a little tip that I picked up along the way of life. A lot of people strive to be successful in order to receive validation from people. But guess what? When they don't receive validation, when they don't receive that fix, they start to feel like they don't have any achievements. They start to feel lack of personal worth, low confidence, reduced performance, and a host of other things. Realistically, the approval of others shouldn't hold more value than the image or opinion that you have of yourself. And guess what? Validation from other people will not fix your brokenness. It won't fill voids in your life where you lack on a personal level. Unfortunately, some people are conditioned to seek approval. It started in their childhood when they were trying to seek approval from their parents and then their siblings, and it probably moved to their friends, to classmates. And once they got into adulthood, it moved from a supervisor to coworkers. Family, I don't want to make it seem like there's something wrong with being celebrated or like there's something wrong with wanting recognition or a round of applause, but understand we have to learn how to celebrate ourselves. We have to define success for ourselves and not get wrapped up in other people's opinions and other people's validations. The trophy that somebody gives you or the recognition that somebody gives you should not make or break you. It shouldn't make you think any less of yourself if you don't receive these things from people. Moving right along, let's talk about how it seems like the hoes are winning. I could have used another word outside of hoe, but it is what it is. We used it already. Let's keep it pushing. My other question is, how do you feel about women who use their bodies to get what they want and to get where they want in life? Are the hoes winning? I don't know. Find out on the next episode of Dragon Ball Z. Personally, I think it's kind of smoke and mirrors. I think some men do go for the type of women that use their body to get what they want and to go where they want in life. But I don't think all men are like that. And I know it seems like a lot of quote unquote hoes have husbands, but realistically, what makes you a hoe? I think society calls you a hoe if you explore your sexuality. I think society calls you a hoe if they think you're promiscuous. But at the end of the day, what makes a hoe? Last question. I think I'm not making any promises. How does social media influence you? And don't say that it doesn't. If you are an avid social media user in some shape, form, or fashion, the shit does influence you. My bad if I got a little aggressive right there, but I get tired of people lying. People will sit on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter all day and then turn around and say social media does not influence them. I feel like that's a lie. That's just my opinion. I could be wrong. But for me, social media influences me. It makes me want to go harder. It makes me want to step outside of my own creative element. Sometimes it even makes me want to switch up my style in a sense of how I do my videos or how I do my podcast. I can be honest and admit that. I can also keep it 100 and say at one point in time, social media made me look down on myself because I didn't feel like I fit into the standard of beauty. But then I was like, fuck the standard of beauty. So sometimes I feel like we utilize social media to the point that it affects us even when we don't know that it affects us. So that goes back to what I said many episodes ago, that you cannot allow what other people are doing or what other people have to dictate how you feel about yourself. I know I've said a mouthful, but the whole purpose of this podcast was to highlight the fact that we chase this idea of success. We chase this idea that we need to be validated. We chase this idea that a person's perspective of us is more important than the one that we have of ourselves. I just want to remind you guys that you are full of life. You are important. You are intelligent. If God is with you, who can be against you? Nobody. So just remember to hold true to your values and the content of your character, and to not extinguish those things chasing external validation. Don't extinguish these things trying to chase what society has temporarily made popular. Today's quote comes from Mark Twain. A man cannot be comfortable without his own approval. Well, family, that's all for today. I hope that you enjoyed this episode. Do me a favor, share it with a family member or a friend. Again, I'm your host, Miss Amber J, and this is the Dear World Podcast. Drink your water, mind your business.